Alright guys, your homework is not due until Wednesday or Thursday, depending on which day I have for you. So 5th and 7th hour, this summary is due on Wednesday before class. You will need to have it done before then for the activity in class. And 6th hour, yours needs to be done by Thursday before you come to class. If you do not have it done before coming to class, you will receive half credit, and then you'll have to have half credit for the class assignment as well. So please make sure your summary is completed on time. We're talking about embedding quotes. So how to effectively embed your quote. So when do you use a quote? You use a quote when the author's words are more memorable and makes your paper more interesting. You're going to use a quote from another author when an author can say something better than you can, and when you want to add authority or proof to your argument. So how do you embed a quote? ICE, ICE. All you need to remember is ICE. Introduce the idea, cite the source, explain the quote in your own words. This goes for when you're doing literary analysis, research, nonfiction, whatever you're writing about, ICE will work for all of them. Introduce, cite, explain. Punctuation and formatting. You're going to use the ellipsis, the dot, 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 when you want to quote the beginning and the end of a passage, but you want to take the middle part out. So if you want to quote the beginning only, then you could quote the beginning dot, dot, dot. The end only, you're going to go dot, 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 and then the quote, and then you might just have your ellipsis in the middle of a quote if you're leaving out the middle. But the page number is always in parentheses at the end of the quote, and in some cases when you're using multiple texts, you need to put the author's last name and the number, and we'll show some examples of that before the end of the lesson. You also need to put the final punctuation after the page number. It does not go inside the quotations, it goes after the page number. For example, the war was not immediate to the boys. Bombs in Central Europe, said Jean, were completely unreal to us here because our place was too fair for us to accept something like that. So it's all talking about the same book. So you're going to just use the page number here and notice the punctuations afterwards. They have introduced the quote by giving a little bit of context, and then they've given the source of the quote in the middle as well. So it's embedded because there's a comma and it gives some information about who said it. Some tips when you are writing or integrating quotes. Use quotes to support your argument, not to replace it. Find quotes that give details to your argument. Don't just find random quotes because then they don't make any sense. Put quotes in context. What's important about the quote, where it came from, who said it, what was the credentials of the person who said it, what's important about what was happening at the time that this quote was used. Trim the quote down to less than a sentence if at all possible, and if it is longer than 3 lines, please refer to the OWL. And here's the website. It's owl.english.purdue.edu. And this site can be used for many things. So this is what the site looks like. It's OWL Purdue Online Writing Lab. This is good for everything MLA format, so anything you ever have a question about. Short quotations look similar to these 3 examples here. According to some, dreams express, and then they have their quote, profound aspects of personality. That's not that author. They had to quote some other author, therefore that's in quotations. This is the guy who said it, and that's the page number it was found on, though others disagree. It could be said the same exact quote in 2 other ways. According to Folk's study, dreams may express, and then the quote, and then the page number. It is possible that dreams may express, and then profound aspects of personality, Folk's 184. So as you see, there's lots of different ways that you could say the exact same thing. Now, if you have a long quote, which is what I was talking about before, if it's more than 4 lines, you will need to do what is called a block quotation. A block quotation means that you will highlight the entire thing, and then you will move and indent over 1 inch from the left margin. You want to maintain the double spacing, just indent the first, only indent the first quotation line of the quotation by an additional 1/4 inch if you are citing multiple paragraphs. But this is a good example here of people who have really long quotes, they just don't know how to cut it down. They're going to block it. So Nellie Dean treats Heathcliff more poorly and dehumanizes him throughout her narration. That's part of the previous paragraph. This is how it is set apart in a block quotation. There will be a separate video for a resource for you to use, and I will show how to do this on Word. Let's look at 3 ways to write your quote into your text using different punctuation. The first one is to use a colon, a dot over a dot. How to use it? Set up the quote, introduce it, that's your I, then present it, that's your cite, as if the proof of what you have just said. So, your key question, can the phrase before the quote stand on its own as a sentence? If the answer is yes, you have a complete sentence without the quote attached, then you can put a colon. Here is an example. This phrase can stand on its own. The crew feasted on Helios cattle with relish. That's a complete sentence. So then you can use a colon just like you would use a period, but the colon now has embedded the quote. And then the quote is there with the page number. Using no punctuation at all. How can you mold the author's words as if they are your own? In this case, you'll probably be summarizing or paraphrasing the story at some point, so you'll have to decide that the writer's words are better than yours and when to use them. If you took away the quotation marks, would you put any punctuation in that spot? If your answer is no, then you still don't need any punctuation. So if you take away all quotation marks, would you even use punctuation? Here's your example. After Odysseus' men were killed, comma, he was left alone on the sea and began floating. There's no punctuation there because you wouldn't normally put anything there if you weren't quoting. And then it says floating north again, straight for Charybdis. Sorry, I'm having trouble talking. Moving down, how to use a comma. You can introduce the quote with an introductory phrase that leads to the author's phrasing. Or you can begin the sentence with the quote and attach the phrase at the end. So the phrase can be at the beginning or the end, but it's got to be somewhere. Can the phrase stand on its own as a sentence? And if the answer is no, then use a comma. So if the answer is yes, can it stand on its own? It's a colon. If the answer is no, it's a comma. When Odysseus killed Antonius, comma, he drew to his fist the cruel head of an arrow. You've got your key point, you've got your comma, you've got your quote. Now you can also do this the other way. Let me bring you a shield and spear, comma, and then they have their phrase after. But how do you punctuate the end and the line or page number? So the page number here, the reference line and page number goes here, or the author's last name. Do not put P or any other abbreviation. I don't need page, I don't need PG, I don't need anything. And then rule number 3, you're going to put the period on the outside of the page number. So finally, you're almost done. Take a look here at how to piece together your evidence, your introduction, and your comments. So introduce the source. The American Immigration Lawyers Association, in their article, Immigrants Are a Vital Component of American Society. So you tell me what the topic is, you tell me where it's coming from, and sometimes you tell me who said it. Provide the paraphrase or the quote, and the page number, and then your comment. This position refutes a common belief held by critics of immigration that foreign-born Americans refuse to learn English but do not embrace the American way of life. So they're saying this refutes that belief. It's showing that it says maintains that immigrants in America make an effort to assimilate, which means they make an effort to learn the language and become citizens and so forth. So that is your introduction, the source, the author's name, comments about the author, your evidence, and your comments. There's 2 other examples here. I encourage you to read those on your own because each one is a little different. Again, it's the introduction of the source, the author's name, maybe it's the title of the article and some important stuff about the author. It's the paraphrase or quote, and then it's the comment. But whenever you are citing someone else's information, even if you paraphrase, you provide the page number or author's last name at all times to avoid plagiarism. So moving on from tips, here are some transitions for commentary. You could use for example, for instance, in other words, however, on the contrary, conversely, similarly, likewise, specially, to explain, for this reason, therefore, because, and as a result. These are just some of the options for you. You will be provided a handout in class that will help. Then finally, the conclusion. Always introduce your quote. Use proper punctuation, use the source information, and comment at least 3 sentences per quote. Here's a few templates that might help you when you are trying to write about your quotes. The author's first and last name, comma, in your source information, so your title of the article. Then choose one of your strong verbs from the Set is Dead wall or from your strong verb avid chart. That, so explains that, and this would be your quote. right here is where you would put your quote. That would be quote. It is important to consider, and so this right here, this is going to be your commentary. Your commentary would go right here. The second one, in the, and this would be your type of source, so in the article, in the newspaper, in the novel, that goes here. The title goes here. Notice the example above. Then the author's first and last name. Information about the author. In this case, they said he is a U.S. Attorney General. Your strong verb. That uses the chart in class. So this is either your said is dead wall, having trouble typing, said is dead wall, or you can use your verb chart that you were provided in class earlier in the year. This is where your quote goes. And then this again is your commentary. Commentary goes here. This is a valuable point because. So hopefully after this you'll be able to easily embed your quotes. All of your subject areas that require essays would be looking for this type of format, and all college professors also look for this format. Thank you for listening. Please submit your summary either by turn in on Edmodo or by writing it on a WSQ form and turning it into the tray on your block day. I will return to class on Wednesday, and I will be there at 7:30 in the morning if you have questions. I have limited internet and cell phone service in where I'm at over the weekend and Monday and Tuesday. So please, if you do need to reach me, try and send an email, and hopefully I can get back to you in a timely fashion.